You know that old adage, when in doubt, make it longer? Well, I guess that's not an actual saying, but that's what Toyota did. Because I have on the channel today the elongated 2024 Toyota Grand Highlander Limited All-Wheel Drive Hybrid. Welcome back. Welcome back to SparkPlug TV. My name is Chris and I do car reviews for literally everybody, not just car enthusiasts. Before I begin today's video, please don't forget to like this video, comment something down below, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell icon so that you get notified whenever I drop a new video, which is whenever I can. Thank you guys very much for your support. Now, we have talked about the crossover mid-size 3-row family SUV on my channel before, but I don't think I've actually talked about just how dog-eat-dog this segment actually is. It's to the point that Toyota was like, you know what, the Highlander's not good enough. Let's make it bigger, let's make it longer, let's make it a little bit more appealing, maybe a little bit more luxurious, and that's exactly what they did with the 2024 Toyota Grand Highlander. I mean, these cars literally have to be gold out of their tailpipes for them to sell successfully. Now, even though it shares part of the same name as the Highlander, the Grand Highlander is a totally different beast. Literally. It's 6.5 inches longer, 2.3 inches wider, and 2 inches taller than the actual Highlander itself, allowing it to have more cargo space, more room for the passengers, and more off-roading capability, if you can believe it. The other grand aspect of the Grand Highlander is that you're not going to be looking at any L or LE models. It starts at an XLE model and goes all the way up into the Platinum Hybrid Max models, ranging in about $60,000. This is the mid-range limited hybrid all-wheel drive that comes in around $52,000 starting MSRP. So for the Grand Highlander, we're looking at 3 different powertrains, 2 drivetrains, and 1 transmission. We're looking at a standard 8-speed automatic transmission. Thank God there's no CVT. You're looking at either a front wheel or an all-wheel drive drivetrain, but the base model is the 2.4 liter turbocharged transversely mounted 4-cylinder engine, or this one, which is the 2.5 liter naturally aspirated hybrid powertrain with a motor generator on the front axle and a motor generator on the rear axle. The final iteration is the hybrid max version, which is the 2.4 liter turbocharged transversely mounted 4-cylinder engine that gets 0 to 60 in a cool 5.6 seconds. This was a very difficult powertrain explanation to get through. There's a lot of different variations, but all in all, pretty interesting. Additionally interesting is the plain and simple fact that there is no drive shaft connecting the rear axle to the front axle. You heard that right. The engine is actually transversely mounted to make room for the hybrid power part of the powertrain, because there is a flat little disc that spins to give the front axle the power that it needs for the front wheel drive aspect of it. Now, the rear axle also has a motor generator attached to the back, but it's also attached to the lithium-ion battery. Now, both axles do act as a motor generator for the lithium-ion battery itself, but there's no drive shaft. So in that case, there's no differential at all. Which I find to be very interesting. I think it's a really cost-effective but still effective way to make an all-wheel drive drivetrain possible. Additionally, we're looking at a kick-open style tailgate. And probably one of the biggest selling points of the Grand Highlander is going to be its sheer larger size in cargo capacity. It's got 16 cubic feet extra of cargo capacity compared to the regular Highlander. And when we look at the back row with the third row up, you're looking at about 20 cubic feet of storage right here. But then when you put the third row seat down, we're looking at 57 cubic feet of storage. And then with all 3 rows down, you're looking at 97 cubic feet of storage. That's a lot, especially for a mid-size crossover SUV. Now, probably one of the biggest other selling points of the Grand Highlander is going to be the sheer amount of room for your occupants. Now, I am at a comfortable driving position in the front row. Now let's see what it's like in the second row. Now the second row is on rails, which makes it really easy for you to get in and out of the third row, especially if you've got car seats, but it also helps when you've got a full-size adult in the back and you need to have as much room as possible between the first and the second row. And with my driving position, my knees are like barely touching the back side of the front seat. So it's pretty comfortable even with my driving position. I have a decent amount of headroom, and of course you do have your sunshades, baby protectors, whatever you want to call them, they're there. Now the second row does also come with this detachable cup holder, and I think in total there's between 16 and 17 cup holders in this thing, and 2 of them are detachable. Okay, so now we're gonna get into the third row. You just pull this lever right here, pull the lever, crunk, get into the third row, and then I'm gonna try to put this in as a realistic seating position as possible, just so it's kissing my knees, like so. And the second row occupant still has, depending on their height, still has a decent amount of room. Now, I think the biggest selling point for this is gonna be the fact that the first and second row seats are so customizable, and there's so much room in the car in its entirety that you can actually allocate enough room for the person in the third row, which is me at this point, this 6'5", 215-pound man, which is pretty impressive. And again, probably one of the biggest selling points of the Grand Highlander, next to the fact that it's pretty nice. But let's talk about that next. Speaking of the overall design language, I really love the front fascia. I think it has a really commanding road presence. I really love how small these are in juxtaposition to the large overarching front grille. I also really like the tiny little grille cutout right here with the Toyota logo. The LED daytime running lights and the headlamps and fog lamps are all very nice looking. The front grille itself is kind of giving Lexus vibes with the spindle grille, but it's just very large. The side profile, really like the side profile. It's got kind of a over dramatic C-pillar towards the back, and the satin finished wheels are also very lovely. And then the back end's kind of bland. I'm not gonna lie. It just kind of looks like a Honda Pilot to me. I like the color matched Grand Highlander logo with the back fascia, and I like the fact that there's no light bar, but it just kind of looks like an outgoing gen Pilot. I don't know, I mean, not the new Pilot, like the last gen Pilot, like the 22s and older. You know, I mean, in general, I think that the front end does enough justice to the overall exterior design language that don't really need to think about the back too much. You know what I mean? Welcome to the front row of the 2024 Toyota Grand Highlander. Now, I'm not going to spend too much time on it because it is very similar to a lot of the other Toyota products that I have reviewed in 2023, but there's a lot more cargo capacity in terms of like little cubbies, little holes that you can put stuff in. The water bottle holders are aplenty up front. And you know, there's some nice pointed features like this wood trim right here, some satin chrome pieces on the around the vents as well. This one does come with heated steering wheel, heated seats, ventilated, cooled seats, and then one of my other favorite features, which is the S-Flow, which basically means that if you are a singular driver in here, it will only direct air to the whatever occupant is occupying whichever seat. That makes sense. Actually, now that I think about it, I want to test it out. If I have 2 people in the car, but 1 person in the back right, in the third row, is it only going to direct air to both of those seats? I'm interested. I don't have enough people for that. In terms of design language itself, I really love the fact that the center console has the slide back thing instead of that, you know, open casket thing. The open casket? That a lot of these cars have nowadays. I do like the fact that these buttons are pretty accessible and there's not that many of them, and they're pretty well known as long as you know what you're looking for. Is that redundant? I don't know. But the gear selector is very ergonomic. I like the ergonomic nature of it. I am here to report that the charging pad does actually work. So hats off to you, Toyota. It does actually work, especially for my iPhone, my giant iPhone Plus. Now, in terms of the ergonomics with the gear shifter itself, the power button is right next to the gear shifter. So you can put it into park and immediately put your finger into the power button and turn off the car, which I find to be pretty interesting. Now, the gauge cluster is a 12.3 inch gauge cluster that is fully digital and really customizable. I think this is finally one of those cars that I'm looking at and I'm like, oh my God, it's actually customizable. You can customize it to either be like just numbers, like numerical, or you can customize it to be a singular speedometer in the center, or you can have the eco power and charge mode on the left or the speedometer on the right. And then even then you can customize it to be, show you the all-wheel drive system, or it can show you the power, what is going to what. It's pretty cool. I actually really like it. The different drive modes don't elicit a ton of stuff in terms of like changes on the gauge cluster. It just kind of changes the color of the background, but it does give you like some slight animations when you do change the drive mode eventually. Now, the infotainment system is 12.3 inches of touch, and it is the general Toyota operating system with the Hey Toyota integrated into it as well. Now, I'm not going to go over that as much just because I have in videos in the past, and it's pretty... The one thing I will say about it though is that it does act better than the Corolla did and some of the other products that I've had. I haven't had to reset it, and the wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto does work really well. Finally, the HVAC is a tri-zone HVAC system. There's so many tactile buttons in here, and it makes me so happy. I am very grateful for that, honestly. I mean, especially in the climate control system, there's a lot of tactile buttons, and it's very intuitive, and you know where everything is. It's just very much a Toyota product, and I know what everything is. I think the only complaint that I have maybe is going to be, that the... Actually, I don't really have like a complaint for the interior. The interior's been a really nice place to be. I actually really enjoy it. I like the way that it's laid out, and I like that it's just kind of... Oh, you know what? The only gripe that I have is the fact that they really only saved like the wood grain and the nicer trim features for the front end, and there's nothing on the rear door panels, and there's nothing anywhere else. It's just plastic in the back. Now, I know that's probably a cost-effective and a cost-saver, but I was just like, okay, well, we're just getting 3 panels of wood grain. 4, I guess, if you count this one. I don't know. Oh, and the last thing that I'll say is that I really just love the center console and the way that it is shaped, especially with the power button on one side and the USB-C on the other. Not to mention the fact that there is a ton of USB-C chargers in here. It's crazy. Anyways, that's all I've got for the interior and the exterior. Be on the lookout for my drive video, and thank you guys for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Bye! Hey Sparks! Thanks for watching today's video. Do you want more SparkPlug TV content? Then you can choose one of these 3 options. Right over here. The middle button is to subscribe to my channel, so please do that. Right over here. These 3. I can't see them in real life, but they're right here.